I bought this Mitsubishi Evo for £4,000 because it hadn't run in 17 years. Last episode, we got it running, and today we're gonna get it back on the road. However, the brakes don't work and the tires are 15 years old. The interior is completely apart and it's missing some hard to find parts which make it illegal to put on the road. I bought this car as I had always wanted a Mitsubishi Evo 1. My plan was to build it to over 400 horsepower, but with my dream project car having come up for sale, I need to sell this Evo. But to do that, we have to get it on the road first. So the first thing that we're going to tackle on this car is the brakes, because if I try and turn this, I have to put a lot to get it going at all. So what that tells us is that we've either got a sticking caliper or just a rusty seized disc. So the easiest thing to do is obviously just change out the pads and discs. But not only do we have new discs, we've also got new Blueprint front calipers because they made them and the guys very kindly sent us out some. So instead of just changing the pads and discs and then having a sticking caliper slow us down on an MOT, might as well change them all. They were very easy to get. So shout out Blueprint, thank you very much. I'm gonna quickly go ahead and change the brakes all around. After changing it all out, the wheel now spun freely. So while the brake is done, I did notice some other things that we need to do. Come around here to the side, you can see that this tie rod end link ball joint is absolutely split and mashed. The boot on it is gone. Equally, down here, the anti-roll bar mount, same story. So before this car can go anywhere near a road, we're gonna need to order some more parts for that too. I'm gonna go to the other side, but I have a feeling it's gonna be the exact same there. I checked the other side, confirming that I did need more parts, and then set to work changing the brakes, but also giving myself ample time to do some cleaning before getting back to work on the timing belt. Right, so I've taken most of the timing belt apart. It's highlighted the very important reason why in the last episode we were so cautious about turning this engine over, because I found two big issues with this car that mean that this car should not have been run really. I tried to play it safe, I wanted to hear it start and move, but other than that, we've been pushing this car around because I couldn't verify that it was good. And there are two reasons to show it's not good. First things first, the crank pulley here. Now, this might look completely fine, but in reality, there is a metal inner piece, then a piece of rubber, which is glued to this outer metal piece. Two metal pieces with a piece of rubber in the middle. However, if I show you this middle piece, if you watch here, you will see that this piece, this inner metal piece, has come nearly fully separated from this outer piece here, which makes sense because when I was trying to line up the marks on the top for top dead center, they weren't lining up. So it means that this whole inner and outer piece is coming away. If that had have broken fully, the aux belts on the engine would have just come loose or broken or done some damage to themselves. So this needs to be replaced. Annoyingly, it's a little bit of money, but it needs to be changed. But that is nothing compared to the next issue I found, which is really not a great sign about the previous person that owned this car. As I may have mentioned before, when doing a timing belt, your bottom crank pulley needs to be in the same time to the correct timing marks as your top cam timing marks. There's a notch here, which lines up to a little piece there. And then over on the right-hand side here, we've got a little arrow there, which lines up to this little piece here. And then finally, up in there a little bit, it's a little bit hard to see, but there is an arrow there which perfectly lines up with the notch right next to it. And then if we come up to the top here where our camshafts are, you can see there is a notch on this camshaft here, and the other side, a notch right there. Now those notches should line up with each other because the rest of the ones down here are already lined up too. The fact that they don't line up implies that the timing on the cams up at the top is one tooth out, meaning that someone has done a timing belt on this car before and gotten it wrong. Now, this engine is an interference engine, which means if you get the timing wrong, the valves will hit the pistons and you'll destroy your engine. But luckily, it seems that one tooth out is just enough to not have caused any damage. And that is the reason why when we got the car, we didn't just go cranking it straight away. I went and turned it over by hand to make sure it wasn't locked up. And then we looked down in those bores to make sure there hadn't been any contact previously. And luckily, there hadn't. So we've got incredibly lucky here. It's now time to fix this incorrect mistake, get the timing belt off, recorrect the cam timing at the top, and I have a kind of cool little tool for that, and then back it goes together and we can start and drive it properly this time.
Now, before Edwin carries on with his Evo, this is a quick reminder that if you are buying a used car, perhaps an old Evo, you should always run a car vertical check.
That's right, because every single day, hundreds of cars get crashed, but some of them get repaired and put back on the road, but they then attempt to hide their shady past. With a car vertical check, you can find out that dodgy history.
Now, all you need to run a report is a VIN or a registration plate, and then a car vertical report will tell you if that car has been crashed, stolen, or clocked.
Now here is Will's old Evo that he had back in the day. Now we thought this car had disappeared off the face of the earth, but Car Vertical gives us some information. We've got yellow mark of the mileage, but we've got green ticks for finance damage and theft, so we know nothing too bad has happened to it. But if I go into the mileage, we can see that there was quite a while where it sat with no mileage, but it's now just gone back on the road. So if you ever sees it come up for sale, you might be able to buy it back.
Now here we have something that isn't an Evo, an Impreza STI, and we've got yellow markers for pretty much everything. But more importantly, we've got a yellow marker for damage, and if we scroll down, we've got photos of said damage. Look at that, 84,000 miles or kilometers, I'm not too sure. We keep scrolling through. All looks good until we get to this photo. Yeah, that's not the front of the car. That should not be steering like that. There has been a serious crash up the side of the car that has possibly bent the subframe, broken arms, damaged the doors, damaged the sills, all sorts of nasty damage under there. And also, the car was imported to Lithuania, so the mileage has gone from 136,000 kilometers all the way back down to 85,000 kilometers. Now, that might be just the mileage in miles, or it could be someone rolling back the mileage. But with a car vertical report, you can find out all of this shady history.
So the next time that you're buying a car, van or motorbike, or an Evo that's been off the road for nearly 20 years, make sure that you're on a car vertical check to make sure the price you pay for it matches its history.
And as an added bonus, Car Vertical are offering you guys 20% off when you use our code 2DC. Back to the Evo.
After those worrying discoveries, I got the rest of the timing belt taken apart. Right, so now our timing belt is off, but you'll see in here a second belt, which is kind of strange. And that is because an Evo's engine is inherently unbalanced. Most 4-cylinders are pairs of cylinders going up. 2 go up and then the other 2 cancel it out, but they don't perfectly balance it out, which makes them vibrate a lot. So what Mitsubishi did was add a balancing shaft, a small shaft that runs through the block, which is driven by your crankshaft, so it spins at the same time as the engine and helps cancel out some of those vibrations. Now, people who are going for higher horsepower builds, they tend to delete these. It's less rotating mass. It can also reduce the risk of belt failures, but we are going to keep this car pretty much standard because it's going to go up for sale. So I'm going to keep the balance shaft. We're just going to refresh it all, do a new belt. So this one in here needs to come on out because we are going to replace it. We've got the timing belt and balancing belt here, a brand new tensioner, which is something that I always like to do. I don't like trusting old tensioners. Part of the aux belts, a new water pump, and all of the new pulleys. So it's time to take the old water pump out, clean it all up, my favorite part, and then stick it back together and make sure that we get the timing right this time. It should help the car run a little bit better. It might be part of the reason why I was kicking out a bit of black smoke when we started it last time, because the timing was a little bit off. So take apart, get the water pump out, stick that in. Getting the new water pump in was fiddly and annoying as the engine is so close to the chassis, but that was nothing compared to the gut-wrenching thing that happened to me next. There is a classic saying that every 20-minute car job is one snapped bolt away from becoming a 3-day ordeal. And unfortunately for me, it's not looking good. While fitting this tensioner onto the inner belt there, which is for the balancer and the oil pump, I noticed that it wasn't seeming to torque up nicely. So instead of pushing it any further, I thought, I really don't want to snap this bolt, so I'm going to take it out. I cleaned the threads out, chased them out. I checked inside, there was nothing in there, no debris. Went to go again, and of course, if you can see there, that is a snapped bolt. So unfortunately, it's not just a case of putting it all back together and starting up the engine now. I need to work out how to extract that bolt. My heart absolutely dropped the moment that went. Unfortunately, I probably should have bought some new hardware. I think it may have been in the hardware. It was literally just further than hand tight that it went. So I think that was already ready to go. It happens on cars. You have to be ready to deal with it. So I'm gonna get a center punch if I can and see if I can get an extractor in there, but day ruined. The reason this is such a bad situation is that the broken off stud is inside the engine block. If I'm unable to extract the threads, the timing belt can never go back together. I'd have to take the engine out and completely disassemble it to have it removed by a professional, which would cost me thousands. So after going to buy some extractors, I took a deep breath, drilled a pilot hole, and prayed to every car god to bless me. Okay, come on, please be working. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Come on. Yes. Whew. Thankfully for me, it came out. We got the piece that was stuck in there out. I've chased it out and there is no issues in there. It looks all okay. Luckily for me, it snapped literally right at the beginning. I was already a little bit unsure of it, but it just went straight away, which implies to me that something was not correct. Now I've gone ahead and ordered a new bolt online, an original Mitsubishi part, and it looks completely different to the one that snapped in there. So I have a feeling that might have been the previous owner using a random bolt that was not correct for it. It also had multiple washers on it. I assumed that it was original, so reused it, but that's my bad. And because of that, we're gonna have to wait a while before we can finish the timing belt, but there are other things to do. To get this car back on the road, one of the main things we need to do is pass the UK MOT test, which is our yearly inspection. Now, most of it is pretty self-explanatory. Do the lights work? Does it start and stop? All that sort of stuff. There are lots of other things that we need to make sure this car works on before it passes. So one of them, it's a bit of an obvious one, is this. This is the wiper that came with the car. We inserted it on there, but it doesn't actually work. That is not from an Evo, it's from a Ford Escort. So one of the things I had to buy was wiper arms. These came from a breaking Evo 1, as well as a new center console, airboxes, fans, because those didn't work, and a load of other miscellaneous parts that are hard to find. So I'm going to get all of those fitted to the car now, which brings us one step closer to this car driving on the road. The wiper arms and new wipers went on fine, but another fail in the UK is if your windscreen sprayers don't work. After discovering a rotten line and replacing it, they were back up and working. Then, as I was cleaning off the old auction stickers, the parts to finally finish the timing belt arrived. Okay, so after copious amounts of Googling and checking which way you tension the belt and making sure this has all been done correctly, I'm now pretty happy. I've taken off all of the things that were holding the timing locked, so our little lock tool up at the top, our pin in the tensioner, and then also the backup safeties, which were the zip ties around the camshafts. I'm now pleased to say we're lining up on the mark here, we're lining up on the mark on the crank, and we are on the cams. And the engine will then line straight back up as it should be. So I'm very happy with that. Whatever degree out of timing that this engine was before, it isn't now, so it should run a little bit better. We are now onto the home stretch, which is putting it all back together. So we've got to put the timing cover back on. I have spent some time in the parts washer with this lower timing cover. It looks lovely now. So it can all go back on. Now you may remember that one of the things that we were waiting on for this car was that front crank pulley, because ours had basically sheared in half, and this thankfully has finally arrived, which is the new one. Now, because there are so many Evos out there, and 1 through 9 basically all kind of share the same engine architecture, there are a lot of people out there remaking original parts. So this is not an upgraded one. You could go to like a fluid damper or a different one if you're going for higher power, but seeing as I'm just getting this car ready to go back on the road for the next person to choose what they want to do with it, I just went with an OEM original one that will probably last far longer, that is better made than the original and less likely to fail again. So we can now chuck this back on and put the aux belts back on. We're nearly there. Last bits of fiddling with the timing belt done, it was the moment of truth. Time to see if it would start and run or lock the engine, potentially destroying it. Right, that was one of the more complicated timing belt jobs I've ever done. Other than the snapping the bolt inside the block, we've got off pretty scot-free. So it's time to have a look, time to see what happens. I'm really praying that this doesn't break when I do this. Right, come on then, Evo. Hey, I'm happy with that. That sounds pretty smooth. That does sound smoother than it did before as well, with the timing being off. That runs much better than it did before. So, timing belt job done. We can now move on to that horrible, disgusting interior, get that all refreshed. The next thing that is really letting this car down is the interior. And that's half down to me in the last episode when we were trying to find the source of that electrical issue, and the other half is down to the previous owner leaving it apart. As you can see, there's stuff all over the floor. There are parts that aren't connected, parts that have been disconnected, and parts that are just missing. I've been looking forward to this since the day that I bought this car. Putting the interior back together is going to be very satisfying. So I'm going to break out the Hoover, I'm going to mount you on a GoPro, and I'm going to get to work cleaning the inside of this so it's an actually nice place to be. First things first, I removed anything loose and hoovered up the dirt before giving everything a once over with interior cleaner to get a good base. Then it was time to reinstall the dashboard, install the new to me center console, and then dig through the mountains of loose bolts that came with the car to find the correct hardware to use for each panel. Then the new gear knob went on, rear view mirror, and kick plates. I then found a super rare plug lead cover which I was over the moon to fit, before moving on to the missing door card which hadn't been there since day one. Right, after a long amount of time, I have fully put together every single piece of interior that there was with this car, and I'm genuinely very pleased with the result. The full door card, the seats are in and bolted in with all of their original covers, which I found and cleaned up. The ECU's still out because I was just doing some wiring diagnosis, but that will go back in. The new center console with the gear knob, all of the main dash, and the other door card. You can see some tape holding that on because I had to glue part of the door card back together, so that's just holding in there for now. Even the top dome light is back in, and also the entire rear of the interior and it's all been cleaned. I'm genuinely quite proud of this. It's quite cool to see an old car go back together. This car was probably never going back on the road. Now the fact that it's all rebuilt, it's really cool. But there's one other thing. You might hear in the background the ticking of hazard lights. That's because to check that this car's all ready for its MOT, we're just going through and checking its lights. Now we've got brake lights, we've got front headlights, we've even got indicators at the rear. We've got indicators at the side, but what we didn't have was any indicators at the front. This one is actually hooked up and there's nothing going on. At first I did the common thing, check the fuses, check the electrical connectors, and they all kind of seemed okay, but it didn't look like there was any power getting to either the indicators, which is weird because they're on the same system as those side ones. And then I remembered that this is an old car, and that means one thing. If you've worked with older cars, you'll be familiar with the term green death or green goo, especially when it comes to wiring. What it essentially means is the copper that is in the wire reacts with oxygen and I think salt and causes it to discolor, go a little bit green, and stops it being conductive. So I thought I'd quickly check the connectors, and I've removed a good amount of it in there, enough for it to work, but you can see the green tinge inside there. I've cleaned the contacts in here, which means when we plug it back in, it works again. So we have to go and do the same thing on the other side, get as much of the green corrosion of that reaction off as possible, and our other indicator should work and restore all of the lights in the car. After getting the rest of the corrosion off the wires, I took a quick break, which for me meant thoroughly cleaning the cam cover, which had been bothering me since day one. And for good measure, I then swapped out the gearbox, diff and transfer case oil with proper quality Motul oil. But then, while replacing the radiator fan, I found more things to clean, like under the battery tray. Right, the final part of mechanical overhaul on this car has arrived. If you have a look in here, this here is your tie rod end. It's what controls your steering. This is your steering shaft. When you turn left, this rod pushes out and turns the wheel that way. The actual tie rod end looks fine, but if you look at the boot, which is where all the grease sits in, this boot is perished completely. It happens when cars sit for a while. This one has been sitting for nearly 20 years, so it makes sense. So we have to do the tie rod end. If you also look down here, our drop link for the anti-roll bar is also, I mean, there's not really rubber left there. That's kind of just fossilized dirt. Need to change those two things, the end link and the same at the rear. We've got a load of new parts. Once those are changed, everything mechanically should be done for this car to go for an MOT and finally go back on the road. So, time to install this. After easily fitting the front drop links, the rear was so seized that I spent hours cutting it off. Thankfully though, after they were all done, the car was complete and the only thing left to do was give it its first wash in nearly 20 years. Here it is, the Mitsubishi Evo 1 is complete. Now, I would have loved for this video to end with me taking it for an MOT for our inspection that we have in the UK and getting this on the road for the first time in 18 years. But today is Thursday, tomorrow is Friday when you're watching this video, if it's just come out. So there's just not enough time, but I put it on my unborn kids. This car will get an MOT and go on the road. And it's ready, it's fully ready. Mechanically wise, what have we done to this car? In here, not only dropping the oil and getting all of that nasty gunk that was in there out from before, we did new plugs, leads, timing belt, water pump, all of the belts, all of the aux belts, a new battery, a full coolant flush, and anything else that the car needed to run. And now, it runs and drives fine. It's not out of time as it was before. That is a very important thing. Plus, I found some of the extra covers and things that weren't there before and tarted up the engine bay a little bit. It looks like a good car now. Before it looked like a barn find. Now it just looks like a nice stock base to build something on. The indicators, we got those working. Those were a last minute thing the other night, so those are all done now. To much of your glee, I have left the original wheels on. Yes, I know we are missing a lug nut right now. I'm waiting on another one to come in. One of them broke. But we've kept the original OZ wheels, but we've just stuck some new tires on it. Again, they're not track tires, they're not rally tires. They are for whatever the next person decides to do with this car. It can at least get through an MOT and drive on the road. Something I do have that I didn't even talk about is this. You will see here, there is a kind of strip missing up here. These are nearly impossible to find. They're like gutter rails that run along there. I found some when I first bought this car and bought them at great expense. Mitsubishi told me they were the last set in Europe that I bought. So I have them with this car. They're just not on right now because I don't have the clips for them. But this will be, exterior-wise, basically complete. It is worth noting, the exterior of this car is rough. The rain right now is kind of hiding it, but if you come over here and look here, there's big bits of cracking where previous repairs have been done. The exterior is now the thing that lets this car down. Whoever buys it, I would assume is going to want to wrap it, paint it, do something with it, but it is solid. Inside is the biggest difference, really. That is a complete interior. It's not perfect, there are little bits and clips broken, but this interior is back together with basically all the parts that came with it in the boot. The only thing I had to buy, the center console there and the shift knob. That's basically it. Everything else was with the car, just taken apart. I also have a theory as to why this car was parked up. There was no wing mirror, there was no dome light, and it has this weird little hole here. That's because one of the most common things on Evo 1s is for their roofs to rust. They have these kind of rails inside the roofs that rust really badly. And when I was under there putting the dome light in, I could see blue paint where the roof was. So this roof, I think, was taken from another car and welded onto this one. Hence why it didn't have its gutter rails, didn't have its dome light, didn't have its rear view mirror from where that was put on. So I think this car got a new roof, and then maybe the guy never paid, maybe the guy passed away, and it's sat since then. But at least it has a roof. That is a huge selling point for Evo 1s. Oh, one other thing, you can see that the ECU and trim bits are off down there. That's because I'm just waiting for some final mounting hardware, some correct mounting hardware to mount it properly. So ignore that. Now I know what I have, don't lowball me. In the rear as well, we put that new fuel pump in. Now that I've put all the seat back together, it doesn't whine and whir like it did before. So that is all done. Again, interior, not perfect, but working again. At the back, we did obviously those new drop links and also the tie rod ends. So now it feels and drives really well. Also the brakes, we did new calipers at the front, new discs at the front, discs at the rear. It brakes and stops well. On our private little driveway, there's a couple little scuff marks. Sorry, Trevor, our landlord, I was doing skids in this. At the back, this car now runs really well. I think that tooth out on the timing was actually messing with things, because now it just kind of runs normally and nicely. I'll start it up. It just sounds normal. Before it was kind of spitting and burbling and popping a little bit. Just a normal car now. Now I know that a lot of people are disappointed that I'm selling this car, but I have my reasons, and as proof that I was going to take this car to the next level, here is something that I bought when I first got this car. This is an OS Geiken 450 horsepower capable clutch that I bought for the car. If whoever buys this car is interested, I'll sell that with it too. But the plan was to go to 400 horsepower with this car, but in the future, when the funds come back, we'll buy another one. So there you have it, my Evo 1 saved from the dead and now ready to go back on the road. Unfortunately, for someone else's pleasure, but hopefully soon you will see the very good reason why I'm selling up some cars. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time. Click here to subscribe and click here to see where I bought this car and first got it running.